Canadian songstress Nelly Furtado was one of the biggest pop stars of the noughties, topping charts around the world, selling millions of records, winning countless awards and just all round smashing it. After the huge success of Loose in 2006, instead of trying to maintain her place in the dog-eat-dog music industry, Nelly pretty much disappeared. She quietly released albums in 2009 and 2012, but both projects kind of flew under the radar. Her 2006 hit Promiscuous has had a revival on TikTok recently, but for the most part, not a whole lot has been heard from her since. So what exactly did happen to that one-time promiscuous girl? Why did she not continue down the pop star path? And what is she up to these days? Let's find out. Nelly Furtado was born in Victoria, Canada in 1978. She spent her adolescence developing her musicality and hanging around the music scene in Toronto. And she was discovered at a musical showcase there called Honey Jam in '97. Brian West and Gerald Eaton of Canadian band The Philosopher Kings spotted her and signed her up to a production deal. It would be the start of a long and fruitful working relationship for the trio, as most of Nelly's first two albums were written and produced with the songwriting pair. Together they made demos for Nelly and shopped them around the record labels before the young singer eventually signed with David Geffen's Dreamworks label. Nelly's first two albums were a fusion of pop, folk, Latin and hip-hop. Her debut album Whoa Nelly in 2001 was a global smash and spawned the huge worldwide hit I'm Like a Bird. It also won the young Canadian singer a Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Performance in 2002. The follow-up, Folklore, however, was a commercial disappointment. The record's failure could in part be explained by it sounding less pop than its predecessor. Dreamworks was also in the process of being sold to Universal at the same time as the album was released, so that could also have contributed to the record falling through the cracks. Dreamworks artists were now placed on the Interscope Geffen A&M label, and Nelly's new record company boss, music legend Jimmy Iovine, suggested that Nelly should work with Timbaland for her third album. Timbaland and Nelly did have some history prior to recording Loose together. Timbaland had sampled part of her song Baby Girl for the chorus of Miss Jade's Ching Ching way back in 2002. He also produced a remix of Whoa Nelly's second single Turn Off the Light. Timbaland also put Furtado's vocals on a remix of Missy Elliott's Get Your Freak On, which appeared on the soundtrack to Lara Croft Tomb Raider. And when Loose was released in spring 2006, it was evident that Nelly and Timbaland had a very definite musical chemistry. Promiscuous, her first American #1 single, spent 6 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Maneater, the lead single in Britain, became her first #1 single in the country. Say It Right was the fourth single off the record, and usually at this point the heat on an album has died way down, but the song became an American #1 in February 2007, almost a year after the album was first released. It was also a huge hit throughout the world. Loose became her first and only #1 American album. 8 singles were lifted from it, and a few of them were some of the most defining songs of the mid-noughties. Overall, Loose proved to be a truly epic pop era, the kind most pop artists could only dream of. Loose sold 12 million copies and was one of the biggest selling albums of the noughties worldwide. Nelly also had a huge international hit, Broken Strings, with British singer James Morrison in '09. Timbaland and his protege Danger also found themselves in even more demand after the huge success of Loose, with the two working on major releases by Madonna, Britney and Mariah soon after. Most artists in Nelly's position would have moved quickly to build on the momentum from a global blockbuster like Loose, but Nelly isn't most pop stars. Instead, she released a Spanish album entitled Mi Plan in 2009, which she put out independently on her own record label. Nelly said at the time that she wanted to record an album in Spanish because partly she's not influenced by commercial trends. Whilst the album did well on Latin charts, for the most part it flew under the radar. Speaking to Larry King in 2017, she also had this to say about that time. At the end of it all, I ended up feeling more like a figurehead than an artist. After Loose, I did a Spanish album because I wanted to change it up. I put out Loose and I enjoyed dancing on stage and singing songs within the confines of an urban pop context. But at the same time, I just wanted to go away and create something new again. I never like to repeat myself. Repetition is very boring. So Nelly finally released her follow-up to Loose in 2012, a whole 6 years later, and in that time her profile had fallen dramatically. Most of the new album had been made with R&B supremo Rodney Jerkins. The lead single, Big Hoops, didn't really impact the charts anywhere in the world. It wasn't really a traditional song structure. It didn't feel very melodic or commercial. Loose had debuted at #1 in America, whilst the Spirit Indestructible debuted at 79, and then quickly fell out of the charts. And after 3 singles, the album campaign was quietly wound down. The record label more than likely knew that there were no potential hits on it, and that might be one of the reasons why it took so long to come out. Nelly is a smart girl, and I'm sure she was more than aware of the type of record she had made. I'm sure she knew it wouldn't work commercially, and that was okay with her, because perhaps that wasn't the kind of artist she wanted to be anymore. I'm sure she felt she'd earned the right to make the record she wanted to make, and it was also her last album on her record deal before she became a free agent. Speaking in 2009, Nelly talked openly about her experiences with fame and how becoming an overnight sensation wasn't all it had been cracked up to be. It was too much too soon. After 2 years of intense touring and partying, I'd spend hours alone in my LA home, just staring at the floor. I felt like a fraud, believing that people liked me for my image and not my music. She also told Britain's Live magazine at the time, "There are times when I long to be a hermit living in a cottage. I often crave that sort of solitude, but having a husband and a daughter tends to get in the way of that." She told the Mail on Sunday in 2017, "I had a nervous breakdown on stage. I was on the Loose tour and my daughter was with me. I was being a mum and a singer on the road. And I realised that being at home and having the whole family experience was what I was seeking. I realised what a simple person I am and how at my root I'm just this bohemian artist who wants to create things on a whim." Speaking to Refinery29 in 2017 about her new album The Ride, she said, "This album is all about realizations. I didn't want to be surrounded by bullshit anymore. It's about dreams not always matching up to the reality and coming out of the other side." Songs on The Ride, such as The Place, talk about her disillusionment with fame and celebrity. In an interview with Larry King in 2017, when asked what she had been doing for the last 5 years since the last album, she said, "I've been doing fun things I needed to do. Playwriting classes, sewing, ceramics. I had my own label for a while, so I was developing other artists. Working at my friend's record store. I needed time to make things." When asked where did she see herself in 10 years' time in 2027, she said, "Hopefully with a few cats. I'd like to have a life that is settled enough that I can relax, drink a cup of tea and take care of my cats." So I think it's safe to say it's highly unlikely there will be any world-conquering follow-up to Loose anytime soon. Not much else has been heard from Nelly since 2017, but recently reports have surfaced that she might be following in the footsteps of Bruce Springsteen and her former collaborator Justin Timberlake, and selling her entire back catalogue for $50 million to Hypnosis Song Management and investment fund Blackstone, a company who'd already bought her old pal Timbaland's back catalogue. So if you were thinking that Nelly's career had gone quiet and she was at home counting her pennies, you really needn't worry. Miss Furtado is doing more than okay. After doing some publicity for her 2017 album Ride, Nelly has disappeared again. She's an intensely private person and she rarely gives interviews. Her social media is rarely updated and she gives no glimpse into her private life, which in a world where most celebrities and influencers are willing to share pretty much everything and anything with everyone, I think Nelly's approach is really refreshing and admirable. You really have to admire Nelly for staying true to her principles and having the courage to tread her own authentic path. Thanks for that, Oprah. Nelly could have been up there with Rihanna and Gaga. She certainly has a great voice, star quality and knows how to write a hit. But it's clear from her recent work and interviews that's just not who she is. She's made more than enough money to ever have to work again, and she doesn't want a pop star lifestyle caught up in a major record label machine. Wherever Nelly is these days, probably in a huge house somewhere in Canada, I imagine. I hope she's feeling settled, drinking lots of cups of tea and taking care of her cats, just like she wanted. If you've any thoughts on anything in this video, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.